So it would seem that the developer of the popular indie horror game Witch Hunt, which you might have heard of at some point, since a decent number of YouTube content creators and Twitch streamers have put out a fair number of gameplay videos on it during its peak popularity, the developer of that game is out with a new horror experience by the name of Skinwalker Hunt. Skinwalkers, for those of you unfamiliar with the term, are similar in many aspects to the Wendigo. They're both stealthy monsters, both use psychological manipulation as a tactic to lure in their prey, and for both of them their prey is you, and the tasty human flesh you're composed of. There are obvious differences between the two, but that's besides the point. Skinwalker Hunt appears to take place in the same general universe as Witch Hunt, even possessing seemingly the same main character, making this somewhat of a rather loose anthology series. But while there are a few lore details, storytelling is not really much of a factor here. Just for the record, I personally didn't really enjoy Witch Hunt. I was going to do a video on it at one point, but I just couldn't get invested enough in the game to do so. I think it had lots of interesting ideas and concepts, but the execution was definitely a bit rough. That said, if you do enjoy this game, it's worth noting that Witch Hunt has been out for a year or two now, and is very much in the same vein as this game here. The gameplay, like the title, is fairly straightforward. This is Skinwalker Hunt. You hunt the Skinwalker. It's not really that complicated, at least not on the surface level. In truth, there are a number of interesting mechanics that definitely enhance the otherwise mundane experience, the first being the tracking mechanics. Tracking is a big component here. By injuring the Skinwalker or visiting seemingly random spots on the map where the Skinwalker has been hurt, presumably by animals, you can examine blood smears, which will activate a little icon over the Skinwalker's present location. By default, the icon will remain visible for 10 seconds, before it starts to slowly fade away. However, you can upgrade your character to extend this to 30 seconds, but more on that later. Another means of tracking is relying on the dog. There's this random dog that you can find throughout the map, which seems to spawn once a certain amount of time has passed since the Skinwalker last attacked you. Get close to it and it'll lead you straight to the Skinwalker. However, be wary, because sometimes the dog isn't quite what it appears to be. To quote Spider-Man Far From Home, appearances can be deceiving. The tracking isn't exactly all that detailed, it's all rather superficial. I would have liked something a bit more like what the Bigfoot game did, where you had a variety of tools including motion sensors, stationary video cameras, drones, etc. This is a lot more bare bones, and because it's single player with no multiplayer support, the hunt itself can take an excruciatingly long time, with long periods of time in which literally nothing happens. I've had the Skinwalker down to half health, and then he just up and disappears for about 15 minutes straight, with only one brief blip on the map indicating that he's idling around on the complete polar opposite side of the map somewhere. I'm all for a decently lengthy hunt. I'm not looking for a hunt to be only 10 or 20 minutes long, but I do expect to at least be hunting the entire time, not just aimlessly wandering around the woods, waiting for something random to happen. And sadly, that's mostly what I end up doing the vast majority of the time. One of the things I liked that I'll give the game credit for is the RPG-like skills or abilities you can unlock by defeating these Skinwalker's followers. Sporadically, you'll run into these semi-superhuman followers that'll run at you with knives. They can run incredibly fast and can make incredibly large jumps in order to close the distance between you. These guys are effectively bosses, or at the very least mini-bosses in their own right, with rather large health bars that require a few minutes to just wear down. Some might not call these guys bosses or mini-bosses, but rather just elite enemies. I distinguish the two as elite enemies don't normally have this much health, and generally don't have much in the way of unique movement and attack abilities and animations, which these guys do. But call them what you will. The point is that these guys are rather annoying, and you can't really outrun them, so your best move is just to take the time to eliminate them, as doing so grants you some decent rewards. In one of my playthroughs, I killed probably 2 or 3 of these worshipper-type bosses, and from one of them I got a gradual health regeneration ability where I believe I would recover around 5 or 6 health per minute when not actively in combat, and from another worshipper I gained a decent reduction in my stamina consumption rate, effectively increasing my character's endurance. While individually relatively small in terms of impact, once you start unlocking a handful of these upgrades, their combined impact can make really all the difference between success and failure when it comes to hunting the Skinwalker. In a previous playthrough, I got one upgrade that tripled the amount of time the Skinwalker appears on my map after I observe a footprint or blood smear he left behind, and believe me, given how large the map is, that can sometimes really help, especially if it's revealed that the Skinwalker is in your general vicinity. Another gameplay component I liked was that each map has one distinct resource that can greatly aid you in your hunt. On the map I played on, there is this massive ammo pile that allowed you to resupply the ammo for your primary weapon endlessly, but you still had to manually travel on foot to get to that location in order to take advantage of that benefit. In the new map that I believe the developer recently added or is in the process of adding as of the time of this video's release, there's some kind of medical tent or ambulance that you can run into in order to fully restore your health whenever needed on the new map. These might sound like unfair and unbalanced advantages against the AI, but they always come at the expense of the other. In the first map, while you never have to worry about finding ammo for your primary weapon, you still need to worry about maintaining your health as well as ammo for your other weapons, if you happen to find any scattered across the map like I did. And in the newer map I mentioned, while you don't have to worry about finding healing items per se, at least not to the same degree as you normally would, ammo is a far greater concern because there is no ammo supply drop in that map, as opposed to the first map. Everything comes at a cost. I think if there is one thing I could do to make the game better, it would be reworking the whole hunt system to make it a lot more game-changing or, at the least, impactful. Hunt Showdown is a game that did that really well. In that game, you hunt down clues that help you eliminate certain portions of the map where the monster definitely isn't, until you pinpoint its exact location. While obviously the boss here is nowhere near as stationary as those in Hunt Showdown tend to be, I think it would have been more interesting if the game focused more on you hunting the boss rather than it hunting you. Despite all the equipment and abilities at my disposal, I never got the feeling that I was actually the hunter. I never caused things to happen, things simply happened around me. I never felt like I was operating as an agent of change, which somewhat lessened the experience for me. At the end of the day, Skinwalker Hunt is a decent but not amazing game. It covers the basics of what you'd expect from a single-player hunting-based horror game, but it doesn't really excel in any notable way. What you see is what you get, and nothing more. I don't regret playing it personally, but it's not something I would consider memorable either. On that note though, that's where I think I'm going to wrap up the video for today. As usual, if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, please do be sure to give this video a like, share it around, and definitely let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm always up for some vigorous and healthy debate in my comment section. We don't all have to agree, but as long as we keep things fairly civil, I'm more than happy. If you want to support the work I do in the channel, subscribing and clicking the bell to opt into getting all notifications would really help. Either way, thanks for joining me, as always. This is WarriorDan signing out. Stay awesome everybody, stay safe, and peace out.